You're listening to the Transform Your Life from the Inside Out podcast. And this episode is titled AYNI Part 3. And it's Part 3 because I've already done, obviously, Part 1 and Part 2. AYNI, in case you haven't listened to either of the two episodes, AYNI is ancient Incan, AYNI. AYNI means reciprocity of life. And participating in this reciprocity of life is the easiest and surest way to get whatever you want. So if you want to create more in life, keep listening.
Hi, I'm Jim Fortin, and you're about to start transforming your life from the inside out with this podcast. I'm widely considered the leader in subconscious transformation, and I've coached super achievers all around the world for over 25 years. Here, you're going to find no rah-rah motivation and no hype, because this podcast is a combination of brain science, transformational psychology, and ancient wisdom all rolled into one to take your life to levels you've never thought possible. If you're wanting a lot more in life, to feel better, to heal, to have peace of mind, to feel powerful and alive, and to bring more abundance and prosperity into your life, then this podcast is for you, because you're going to start learning how to master your mind and evolve your consciousness. And when you do that, anything you want then becomes possible for you. I'm glad you're here.
Okay, AYNI. So I've already done two episodes on this, and here at the podcast, the iTunes channel, or whatever you call it, I'm sure you can search and find two more episodes on AYNI. And again, the spelling is AYNI. And I wanted to do a third because it's something that happened a couple of weeks ago. Yet this is around me all the time. I mean, I'm always reminded of this and watching other people and in my own life. And what I know, me formerly included, is that 80% of people, and I don't know if it's 80, but it's a lot, but 80% of people, and statistically in the US, it would be 78%, because 78% of Americans literally have no savings and live paycheck to paycheck. But they're nowhere close to what they want to create in life. And AYNI is a principle, literally, I think it's one of the most profound principles that I learned from my brother-in-law, the shaman, Don Javier. And for many years of my life, I lived the opposite of AYNI. I'm just being transparent. I mean, I grew up poor, so I learned to live from the survival mode, meaning there's only so much in the world. I have to scratch and claw and struggle for my money. And guess what? I'm going to take care of me first and get the things that I want first. And then, you know what? If there's anything left, and I never really thought this way consciously, but it was just the way I operated. And then I would go, if there's anything left, now I will go do things to help other people. And truth be told, many of you listening right now, you grew up like I did. And if you didn't, you still learned to live in the same way. And I lived that way for probably almost 40 years of my life. And I'm going to tell you, the irony here is that it doesn't create what you want for yourself in life. It actually repels what you want in life. So the irony or the dichotomy is you live that way so you can have more, and actually by living that way, it actually repels more and keeps you stuck where you are. And the reality is, the truth is, AYNI is such a simple principle. It's really simple. And basically, it's what you get in life is what you give. Now, I know every one of you are like, Jim, come on, man. Really, and you think that, and many of you will think, I already know that. No, you don't. You understand it, but you don't know it. And there's a difference between understanding something and knowing something. Because when you know something, you generally operate from that place. And when you understand it, you're analytically aware, but it doesn't mean you operate from that place. One of my all-time, favorite songs, and one of my all-time, if not the all-time favorite music group, is the Beatles. And one of their songs, which is one of my favorite, is called The End. The End is actually the last song that the Beatles ever collectively sung together. And the last line of the last song is, and in the end, I can't talk. And in the end, the love you get is equal to the love that you make. Pretty simply is, what you put out in the world is what you bring back to you. Now the question is, in introspection time, again, many of you are saying, well, I get it. I understand that. Yet, if you don't have everything that you want in life, in the external world, and even in the emotional world, providing that, you're not dealing with something brain chemical or whatever, I'm not going to go there, but I mean, just generally speaking, is look at what you're giving, because your life is a reflection of what you've given. And you've all heard the phrase I'm going to use next, every one of you. And it's so simple times 100, and we miss it, is that you reap what you sow. And that's both in terms of your physical behavior and your thought processes. So if you're not reaping the things that you want in life, guess what? You're not sowing them. Think about that. Consider that. That is like holy mackerel, barn burning, life changing when you get that. And like I said, I didn't have it for many years of my life. And what I recognized about myself, being introspective, is that I've always been a very generous person. That comes to me very naturally. That's just the way that I am. I think I learned that from my mother, and it's very natural. But what I recognized, and I always thought that was enough, but what I recognized is that I was selfishly generous. And what that means is I was selfish and that I take care of myself first, and then I would be generous to other people. And I lived that way for a lot of years. And until I learned to just give and serve, not being a doormat and not letting people take advantage of me. And I want to create a little clarity to not go too deeply into this here. But even in my programs, they're like my transformational coaching program. I have 370 people in it right now, and it's $4,000 to register. And you could say, well, Jim, if you're so giving, then give it away. Absolutely not, because I used to think that way. And guess what? And I'm the same way, so I can speak from being human and experience. People don't appreciate things when they don't have skin in the game. So what I recognized, and I just want to touch on this and move on, is that I give, and I give with an open heart, but I recognize things. For example, and I have experience with this, helping people, that if I had I do have, but as an example, if I were going to take $100,000, let me put it that way, and you said, Jim, do you want to help homeless people, or do you want to help kids who want to go to college? So think about that. Who would you choose to help first, the homeless people or the kids that want to go to college? Now, many years ago, I would say, well, the homeless people. And now I would say the kids who want to go to college. And the reason why is because I'm going to use this word at the risk of maybe not coming off right, but it's a better investment in people that are already moving in their life than people that aren't moving. It's harder, let's say, it's hard to pull people out of quicksand, but yet if you're working with people that are already moving, that's a lot easier. And I learned that the hard way a few years ago, in that I helped a mother and 4 kids. I saw them at a 7-Eleven one day, and I literally put them up in a Motel 6, got them off the streets, put them into a Motel 6, got a room for them, and I had them there for about 3 months. And I told some of my students about this, and they were helping, and many of the women hopped in and helped out, and we actually found a shelter for this mom and the 4 kids. It took us about 3.5 months. And the whole time, primarily myself, I footed the bill for the hotel. And one of my students was a real estate agent and a former social worker from many years ago. And she said to me, and I did not understand it back then. I mean, I really did understand, but I didn't have any experience with it. She said, Jim, it's not hard getting people off the streets. It's hard keeping them from going back to the streets. And guess what? This lady that we spent thousands of dollars, and I did, and people that helped, thousands of dollars and a lot of time, we got her off the street into a shelter that helps her rehabilitate, get a job and everything else. And guess what? She had this boyfriend she didn't tell me about, and he had just gotten out of jail, which she did not tell me about, which I have no judgments about that. But he couldn't go into the shelter, so he took a $12 an hour job, and she decided that there was not a bus running from the shelter to where he lived to take his $12 an hour job. And guess what? She didn't go to the shelter, and she opted instead to continue to function. Here's the key. She functioned still at marginal financial existence. And when my student told me, Jim, it's not hard to get people off the streets, it's hard to keep them off the streets, I understood that. Now, how do I get on this tangent? Is where I choose to serve is people that are already in momentum. Because if I can help people that are already in momentum, guess what? They're a better air quote investment because they go out and they create more momentum and move more people and help more people and grow the economy than people that are not already in momentum. Now, you may choose to not understand that or agree with that or whatever, and that's entirely up to you. And that's your personal value system, and I respect that. But that's where I work from, is I serve with an open heart, but yet I only serve to the degree that I can serve people that I know that will be a benefit to everyone. And it's not a vacuum to myself or the system, so to speak, metaphorically speaking, or using an example of the word system. Where I had the idea for this podcast is I live in Sedona, Arizona, and I'm very, very blessed. I live in a very, very nice home. And it was a 7-figure home when I bought it. And I didn't plan on doing what I did. I called a decorator, and now I planned on that. The home's built in the mid-90s, and I wanted to update some things. And oh my gosh, it turned into literally, when I say literally, I do not mean virtually, I mean literally. It turned into a 1-year complete house gut. I mean, we literally took the entire house all the way back to the studs, 6,000 square feet, upstairs and downstairs. Now, here's why I thought about this story. Is when I bought this house, I mean, it was nice, but I wanted to update some things, and it ended up turning into everything. But I furnished the house with furniture because Sedona has a really, really high rental occupancy. Something like 70% of rentals here are full year-round. So I thought when I bought the house that I'd buy it and live here part-time and live in Dallas part-time and eventually move here full-time. So what I did is I went and bought an entire house full of furniture, brand new furniture, and furnished the entire house, for renting. And that meant buying everything to rent a higher end rental. And I mean everything from, a rolling pin to the kitchen. And I had a list, and I was in a list with a listing company, a rental company. But here's the thing. I had all this furniture that was brand new, and each bedroom suite was about, and I had 1, 2, I'm counting here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, I had 8 beds in the house. Each bedroom suite with furniture and mattress and bedding and nightstands and lamps were between $3,500 and $4,000. Okay, long story, way too long. I'm sorry, but let me tell you why I'm getting here. So as I was gutting the house, I got to know the electricians. My contractor hired a local electrician company, and I got to know one of the electricians, and we were chatting one day. Now, I had to empty the entire house to renovate. So all this furniture that I bought, I called a consignment store, but basically it just wasn't worth it. And I'm like, why don't I just give it away? So I literally gave away an entire house of furniture that was brand new. I mean, when I say gave away, I was like, please just take it. I've got to get rid of it. And I live in a small town. Even storage is hard to come by. So because I know some of you problem solvers listening are like, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Why didn't you do? Well, there's a reason why. But I ended up actually just giving everything away. Now, one of the electricians here was a good guy, good kid. And I said, hey, do you need any bedroom stuff? And he said, yeah. He goes, my daughter needs a bed and nightstands and everything else. And I'm like, well, come downstairs. I want to show you. I've got my downstairs looked like a furniture showroom because I took all the furniture from upstairs and brought it downstairs. And I'm like, literally, just pick what you want. Just take what you want. And he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, there's no strings. You don't owe me anything. Just take it. And he took about $4,000 in furniture. And truth be told, in fairness to him and to everything else, is he was doing me a favor because I had to liquidate the house. But here's the thing. That was a year ago. And about 2 weeks ago, I bought someone a brand new Tesla. And they needed a 220 plug for their garage wall. So I called the electrician, but not the electrician company. I called the electrician that I knew because I had his number. He was in my house every day for 6 months doing electrical work. And I said, hey, can you install a 220 plug for me? And he says, yes, I can do it, but you have to call my company and get it booked. Now, in fairness to him, I don't know, maybe, which I doubt. I really doubt because I know who owns the company. It's a family member of his. I doubt he had any contract that said he couldn't work off the clock on the weekends or whatever. Mind you, I didn't ask him to do it for free either. I just asked him if he could do it. And he said, basically, yes, but I can't do it. You have to call my company and book it through there, which means you've got to pay my company to do this. And in that moment, I recognized that he doesn't understand reciprocity. He doesn't understand AYNI. Now, he's a really nice guy. I like the guy, a nice guy. And I'm glad that he has the furniture and the lamps. I'm glad he has everything else. But when he was working in my house, we were talking, this sounds really, I mean this humbly, but he's like, because I live in well, I'm going to say the whole thing. I do mean it humbly, I promise. I live in one of the nicest homes in Sedona, Arizona at the moment, because there's nothing like it. It's a gutted, brand new home for the most part. And he one time said to me, Jim, how do you afford something like this? Teach me, tell me. And we were talking about abundance and everything. And I never talked to him about AYNI because there was no reason to at that point. But him asking me that means that he wants to learn about AYNI and these kind of things. And it just showed me that, I was him a lot of years ago. I was the same way. Now, what I would have done if I had actually been someone's electrician and they gave me all this furniture and they called and said, hey, can you do 220 plug? I would have said, absolutely, I can do that for you. And just tell me what you need. I can't do it during the week. I can't do it Monday through Friday from 9 to 5, but I can do it for you on the weekend. Now, I'm saying that I would say that. Would or would I not? I mean, many years ago, I don't know what I would have said because I was always trying to make money and bring money into my life. But this day and age, my whole point is that I work from reciprocity. And I've learned, because I have empirical evidence, that when you work from reciprocity, and here's the number one secret to creating wealth in your life, and it's very simple, and I mentioned it before in a money class that I do, is that when you can create expansion in other people's lives, that's the operative word, expansion. When you can create expansion in other people's lives, they will pay you for that if it's requested or they have to or it's part of the deal. For example, let me prove this to you right now. The only reason you listen to my podcast, there's only one reason. It's not for me. It's not to hear me just jabber away forever. It's not for me, and it has nothing to do with me. The only reason you listen to my podcast is for expansion. You want to take something out of it to make your life better, because we're always looking to make our lives better, to go to higher emotional states, which is hardwired in the brain. This is why, for example, this is why a baby will cry. And when the baby's crying, what the baby wants is to be held or loved or picked up or fed or diaper changed. What is happening here? The baby wants to go to a higher physical state, which means a higher emotional state. So when you can help people go to a higher emotional state, and you do that through expansion, when you can do that, trust me when I tell you, and you do it ethically and honestly and with the best interests of these people in mind, in terms of, I call it service. You do it from service. People will give you money all day long. And that's one of the secrets. I started this podcast about getting what you want. But to get what you want, you have to give. There's many of you have probably heard of the old motivational speaker, Zig Ziglar. I was listening to motivational stuff back in the late 80s and early 90s. I don't listen to it anymore because it doesn't matter why, I just don't. But Zig Ziglar once said something to me, and it was an aha, and I got it, but you know what? I didn't get it. I was at a big event with the arena and all these people. There were 20,000 people there, and Zig Ziglar was speaking. And he said something, and it's the only line that I remember from that event that day. And there were 10 other speakers, like General Norman Schwarzkopf. Some of you older people might know who he is. Back in the 90s, whatever we did here in the U.S., Desert Storm or whatever, before Desert Storm, I don't know what it was called. Anyway, all these speakers, and the only one and the only line that I remember that entire full day of people up on the stage yammering away was when Zig Ziglar said, and now mind you again, I'm tossing myself under the bus. I heard it and it resonated, but I didn't come to know it. I understood it. But he said, to have what you want in life, you help enough people get what they want, and you will get what you want. Think about that. Let it just settle in. You help enough people get what they want, and they will help you get what you want. So where I live from, well, before I go, hopefully you know where I live from, or you have some hint of that listening to me for some time, because I'm tossing myself in the mud, under the bus. I'm just being transparent. Did I understand this? Heck yes, I understood it. Did I know it? No. Sounded good on paper. And I'm like, I think I aspired to live that way. But it reminds me, where I used to work from is an old client of mine, and they fired him. He was a real estate agent, and he hired me because this is when I did one-to-one clients, and this was probably, 7-8 years ago, maybe 9 years ago. He wanted to go from $750,000 a year to $1 million a year in revenue, and he hired me as his coach, one-to-one. And one of the things we did in coaching, and something that came out, in our conversation, is that he said, Jim, I want to take care of my wife and my kids first. And when I take care of them, then and only then will I help other people. And right then and there, I'm like, he doesn't get it. He does not get it. He's self-serving. And I noticed in my entire time working with him, I worked with him for another month or two, and I couldn't move him from that premise. And I said to him, you know what? This doesn't work. I can't, I'm not a good coach for you because I can't move you. Unless I can get you to a place to open up where you can expand yourself to help more people, I can't help you. And I fired him as a client. But you know what? In all honesty, I was probably him or some variation of him, 20 years ago. And this is also, in fairness to me and all of us and you too, it's brain-based. It's a survival mechanism. I think we're some degree hardwired to, let me take care of me first. And when I take care of me, now I'll take care of you. And the same thing, the subtle distinction here is, you've heard before, and I tell people you've got to take care of yourself. For example, if you're on an airplane and the mask drops down, and they tell you put the mask on yourself first before you put it on anyone else. Why? Because if you pass out, you can't help anyone else. So how do I say this? Because I haven't thought through this to share with you guys, is where I work from is I'm fully capable and fully able. And what I know is I always have more to give. So why don't I stretch myself a little more and give a little more? And where I work from now also, as opposed to years ago, is I don't work any longer from, let me take care of me first and then I'll help everyone else. Where I work from is, what can I do to build people? One of my biggest mentors is a woman named Virginia Cook here in Dallas. You won't really find anything about her personally online, yet she's an icon, literal icon in Dallas business. Friends with billionaires and famous people, and on the board of I think she was, well, it doesn't matter. She's well known. Let me put it that way. Very well known in the business community. And she hired me for a coach to come into her company. And she and I became very close personal friends very quickly. And one of the best friends I've ever had. And she's in her 80s now, but she was in she turned 70 years old when she hired me. And she said to me one time, we were at dinner, and she said, Jim, if I lived 100 years, I will never recoup all the goodwill that I've created in the world. And she meant that humbly, very humbly, because I would watch her serve and serve and serve and serve and serve and help people. And at Christmas a couple of years ago, she wrote me a note, several years ago, and it said, basically she goes, the way, she goes, this is what she said. She goes, as I understand, is that we have to eliminate the word, achievement in our life. We have to eliminate the word achievement, and we have to replace that word with contribution, and we have to live from contribution. And I've watched her, people follow her like a flock. I mean, they follow her. She's had agents that have worked with her for 30 and 40 years. And me working with her and being a coach in her company and then being a coach to her, she became my mentor. And it's extraordinary because the things that I watched her do were all about not how big can my company be? How much money can I make? Well, it was never about that with her. And she built the second largest private real estate company in Texas in a matter of a few years. Prior to that, she was president of a very large company in Texas. And I'm like, to myself, this works. This works. And we have to live, please take this, AYNI, is we have to live. If we want to create more in life, we have to live from contribution. And we have to take the I out of it. Like, what am I going to get out of this? And let me take care of me first. And if we want to create the super abundance we want in our lives, we just can't work from that place. Now, you look at my podcast, for example, just thinking here for a second, you look at it, there's no ads. I don't have any external ads on any of my episodes, even though somebody I know I'd mentioned here on the podcast, somebody wrote in and told me they wanted all of my content without my ads in it when I was launching my program a few months ago. And they were a taker, plain and simple. They're a taker. But here's the thing, is they don't know they're a taker. And there was this research done many years ago, and I mentioned it here in the podcast somewhere before. And there's a book by a guy named Adam Grant, and I think it's called Give and Take. And basically, salespeople, he had looked at salespeople over the years, fall into one of three categories, or a combination. But the categories are obviously the givers and the matchers and the takers. Those who give in life, those who match, meaning you give, I give, you give, I give, you give five, I give five, etc. And the takers, those that take. And he found that the givers made more money than the other groups, and in many years of research. And when I watched Virginia, she lived from AYNI. She was the giver. And that's why she was a very, very, very nice person. I adore this woman, adore her. But she was a giver. Now, she was discriminately a giver to, like I started this podcast with. You have to be careful. I mean, if she gave somewhere all day long, but it did not return the AYNI, you have to have the AYNI coming back, because life is a cycle and you cannot cut off the cycle to yourself. So for example, if you give and give and give and give and give, and you've got nothing left to give, you cut your own cycle off. My brother-in-law taught me this. Life's like an ATM, is that you can't keep taking money out of the ATM without replacing it, because very soon you have no money to take out of the ATM. And when it comes to AYNI, that's what I meant there. That's a better explanation. That's what I meant, is that I selectively, I give where it's going to actually perpetuate the cycle, where it comes back to me. If someone's going to poke a hole in the cycle, I do not give. And the reason why is because I help a lot of people. And I have to maintain that reciprocity in life. And I have to maintain that AYNI in my own life. And so when I give, I don't expect things to come back, but I do things that bring things back, like my transformational programs, bring more revenue back to me. And I don't hoard it. I don't sit on it. I don't stuff it in my mattress. Even though I live in a nice home, I live very simply. There's a lot of things I could buy that I don't. And what I do is I take that money and I'm like, how can I expand? How can I grow? What do we need to hire on the team? What outside consultant do we need? Let me grow. Why? So I can reach more people in the world and create more AYNI and more expansion, which brings more expansion to me, which means I can therefore reach more people. Okay. I think you get the point by now. So take an honest look. Take an honest look at your own life. And the truth and the reality is if you don't have what you want in life, life's simply reflecting the value that you create. And also, I talked on another podcast, it also reflects the degree to which you value yourself. But if you don't have the abundance in your life, and I work from, because now let me just a quick differentiation, and I have to run here because I've got some things to do, is I used to work from sustenance. Oh, I need money. Okay. Then I used to work from, I just need enough money. I need enough money to cover my bills. That's not where I work from now. Where I work from is money and prosperity flow and pile up in my life. Money flows into my life in abundance, and a lot of it. And it does. And also notice, it does, but also notice you listening, I have never asked you personally for 1 penny, nor have I pushed things on you that would make me money somewhere else. I've had people say to me, Jim, if you let me advertise on your podcast, because we're approaching millions of downloads at this point, a couple of million already. And I've had people say, can I advertise on your podcast? I will pay you $5,000 a month if you let me advertise. No, I'm not doing it. I don't let anyone advertise because I don't want you listening being subjected to someone else's commercialism. This podcast is for me about one thing, serving and creating the AYNI and the reciprocity so that money comes back to me, the expansion for you, the money, which is a medium of exchange, comes back to me so that I can expand more lives. You get it by now. Life is a cycle. And if you don't have the prosperity and abundance flowing into your life, it's because you're not participating in the cycle. Well, let me back up there. You are participating in the cycle because you're alive. Everyone participates. But the return you have, and here we go, the return you have in your life is a reflection of your participation in the cycle of life. That's pretty powerful. That's pretty good now that I think about it. But Don Javier said to me years ago, and I had on my computer a sticky, a little post-it note for a decade. And that post-it note said, as I'm projecting, so am I receiving. And the Beatles said it as well. You get what you give in life. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on the next episode. And one more thing before you go, is let's create some more expansion for other people. Share the podcast. It literally just takes 1 second to click whatever you're on, just share it on your share the podcast with your friends and your family and your social media. Share. Because believe it or not, you're part of the cycle of AYNI when you do that, because you're creating more expansion. Okay, make it a great day today and go out and help someone today. All right, bye-bye. If you're serious about transforming your life from the inside out, I have a free training that you're going to want to listen to, and it's helped tens of thousands of people all around the globe. The thing is, all of my students start here because when you learn to change your thinking, you'll change your life. Because as you already know, life happens from the inside out. The training is called Discover How to Eliminate Fear and Negativity in an Instant. So go to jimfortin.com/eliminate fear and start learning how to transform your life at a deeper level from the inside out.
Thank you for listening to this entire podcast. If you're the kind of person who likes to help others, then share this with your friends and family. If you found value, they will too. So please share via your social media channels. Also, if you have questions, I'm here to assist. You can email me questions to support@jimfortin.com, and I may even use your question for a future podcast episode. Also, if you want transformational content like this daily, connect with me on Instagram. My Instagram name is I am Jim Fortin. Finally, I do have a personal request. I believe that we're all here to help others and to grow and evolve ourselves. Together, you and I, let's help more people. If you would please leave a review on iTunes, and a good one, by the way. I'd be grateful, and through your assistance together, we can transform more lives. Thanks for listening.